tea at the Ritz and a surprise extra guest.
Mr. Palmer, Roger Cook, I'd like to talk to you about money laundering.
About what?
Money laundering. We've been listening...
Goldfinger, as he's known, is about to find he's in hot water, accused of offering to launder $100 million a year for the world's biggest producer of heroin.
Just heard you offering to launder money. We'd heard you offering to launder at least $3 million. We have. We have the tape of it. Everything you said.
Good. Very good.
I can handle 50 million every 6 months.
I think his greed make him blind.
Tell us more about the laundering.
Money laundering is the coming crime. It's already so big it could easily destabilize the economies of whole countries. What happens is this. Dirty money, the proceeds of crime, in this case £500,000 that the police could easily trace, is passed through legitimate bank accounts, companies and properties to emerge the other end as clean, laundered money the police could never trace. That's how criminals buy respectability. And that's how we came to cross swords with Goldfinger, alias John Palmer. Respectability came with this country estate, which, since our investigation, has been raided by the police. And Palmer is on the move, to Tenerife, to Portugal, and yesterday in his private jet to France. Now he's unwittingly told all, he's still trying to stay one step ahead of the police. As with all money laundering, it's a complicated story.
If possible, you go abroad, you go offshore, you make your changes, you make very many changes so that it's in cash on one occasion, perhaps it's in property on another, it may actually be in high-value goods like gold or diamonds, and you keep changing it round so that at the end of the day it makes it very difficult to find the trail of what happened and when.
John Palmer is no stranger to the police. They've been watching him ever since nearly 7,000 gold bars were stolen in Britain's biggest ever robbery, Brinks Matt. The police went looking for the gold at his far from modest home.
When we raided John Palmer's house, there were in fact 2 bars of gold there that were still warm, that had just come from the smelter. Unfortunately, John Palmer wasn't in residence at the time. He had left 2 or 3 days earlier to go on a holiday with his family.
He'd gone to Tenerife, where he quickly gained a reputation for arrogance.
I'm in no hurry to go back. I'll take my time and go back when I'm ready and not when Scotland Yard's ready.
Nevertheless, it was an embarrassment that half the Brinks Matt gold had been smelted down in a shed in his garden, and that the police knew the robbers used other Palmer connections as well.
They did have various conduits down which they could pass the gold, one of the main ones being down to the West Country to a bullion dealer's called Scadlin.
And Scadlin's in Bristol was then part-owned by Palmer.
There, the gold was resmelted, mixed with old jewellery, old pieces of silver, and eventually sold back into the legitimate gold market.
On the run in Tenerife, Palmer started a timeshare business before being forced to come home. Surprisingly, the Old Bailey jury believed his claim that he didn't know the 1.5 tons of gold he melted down came from Brinks Matt, and acquitted him.
I was melting gold, but innocently.
Do you now accept that gold?
Never.
Do you now accept that it was Brinks Matt gold?
I don't accept all of it was Brinks Matt.
Ever since, the authorities have been seeking to recover the money laundered from Brinks Matt through a complex web of companies in Britain and offshore. John Palmer's offshore business empire is now centred on Tenerife. It all began here at the Island Village timeshare complex, a project built on fear and falsehoods. Violence is just another currency to Palmer. But it's also a cover for his other specialty, which is money laundering. Now, to prove it, to catch him at it, He's such a careful and cautious man, we had to construct a sting, which was original, believable, and bold. And that certainly describes the man who helped us, the so-called Prince of Death. General Khoon Sa cuts open raw opium, which will be refined into heroin, to finance his fight for an independent Shan state inside Burma, as promised, he says, by the British in 1947. Khoon Sa is a man we've met before. He's not easy to reach, but because he wants international recognition and a better image in the West, back came the message that he would help us expose Palmer. In a sense, we were to set a thief to catch a thief. What we needed next was a believable middleman. In fact, that's what he was trying to build. Since we were in there, he's declared the... George Buddy Burns is an ex-US Marine who served in several Southeast Asian conflicts and has had 17 years undercover police experience in narcotics.
He's talking about the people that stand in the background are the ones that are the growers.
That's correct. And it's the country's sole income, virtually. I mean, he's not too proud of it, but it's all he's got. But as he produces 80% of the world's heroin,
Good, very good.
the potential profits for a money launderer would be staggering. In his hotel suite in London, George set to work. First, a call to the Canaries. On Tenerife, John Palmer boasts he runs 12 timeshare complexes and employs 1,000 people. He also rules them with a rod of iron. The smallest transgression draws a draconian punishment.
Well, the word would go out, break the legs.
Did this apply only to people who worked for him or customers as well?
Oh, no, this applied to customers also if they shouted too loud.
Brian Nolan did shout too loud about broken promises and overcharging, and believes Palmer's men beat him up as he left for home.
I turned around to pick the hand luggage up, and the same gentleman I immediately identified walked through the door and took 3 steps towards me, and before I realised what was happening, had hit me 3 times around the head with a baseball bat. I was able to fight him off, in the process of which I did get 1 good thump on him. I then became aware that blood was going everywhere.
John Palmer's timeshare operation is as corrupt as they come, and staff training managers have actually boasted of his crooked past.
John Palmer, last year, made £70 million. Did you hear about the Brinks Matt gold bullion robbery in London? Well, John Palmer, he was a jeweller, and he was known to the underworld for fencing jewellery. He was given the job of melting these gold bars down, so he thought, timeshare. So he bought all the land and built Island Village, and he made millions of pounds out of that village. Now he can actually go back to London and go, there's the millions I stole off you, and he'd still be a multi-millionaire.
And the quest for yet more millions led him to that meeting in the Ritz.
Roger Cook, I'd like to talk to you about money laundering.
About what?
Money laundering. We've been
Which has been the long-term specialty of financial investigator Dave Roberts.
Money launderers and drug traffickers are afforded a golden opportunity by the use of timeshare operations to travel about the world under the cloak of respectability. The various sites that they use for their operations, of course, are supported by local bank accounts and other support facilities. This means, of course, that they can manipulate and transfer funds all around the world without giving rise to any suspicion.
It sounds like the perfect vehicle, the perfect system for cleaning up dirty money.
Yes.
Right, buddy, there's a profile of the man we're interested in. We'll look at that in a minute, but let's look at his pictures first. He's 41 years old. Time to brief our American lawman, George Burns. Essentially, it's a rags to riches story. Started with nothing, did some market trading and all sorts of things, giving him all kinds of an odd reputation on the way up. Estimated a couple of years ago to be worth perhaps 200 million now. We'd like you to get as close to him as you can. We figured out, with your help, a sting we think will work. So if you can win his trust, he may well ask you to do what we believe he's been doing as a matter of course over the last few years, and that's launder money in a pretty big way.
Hello.
Oh, Mr. Palmer. Yeah, I was waiting your call.
Palmer was immediately tempted by the money involved and flew to London in his private jet, sending his Spanish lawyer, Ramon Solano, ahead of him.
Are you splendid there?
2 hours.
A couple of hours, yeah, at least.
And then, in even more tempting detail, the bait was laid out.
What I had to talk to you about, what I had to tell you is I have a very, very, very important client.
If they are able to launder money, they will offer to pass so-called dirty money through a network of companies for a fat commission. And at the Ritz, where ironically Brinks Matt was partly planned, that's exactly what Palmer did offer, in a deal involving $62 million.
He's got 62.5 right now that he's got to move.
$62 million.
62,500,000 now, right now.
Right now.
Because they just received the money off of this last crop. They're going to have a bumper crop this year. They're looking at 6,000 tons of opium this year. I mean, that's what they're looking at.
Palmer made it clear he was already in the money laundering business and could duplicate his proven system for others if the price was right.
You know, we're going to have to sit with him and talk about that, but we can set up companies to guarantee things. I mean, it's going to take it's going to take us a week or so to be with him.
I'm sure. I'm sure of that.
I'm sure we can set up companies that are going to suffice for guarantees with nominees, directors.
Palmer later flew off to Russia to do business, he said, with the Russian mafia. Ever cautious, he next wanted to meet the opium producers themselves. Chiang Mai on the northern Thailand border, starting point for the trek into Shan province and General Khun Sa's headquarters. Since we were last there, the living standard of his people has been vastly improved. New hospital, new housing, new hydroelectricity. The general repeated his insistence that if the West would recognize an independent Shan state and provide aid to replace the income from opium poppies, he would cut off the opium supply. And to help sway public opinion in the West, he would send 2 of his key men. Sawn Porn with the beard would do the deal. Palmer even had his minders check out the restaurant in which they were to meet in case it was a trap. First, the Burmese wanted happy snaps to take home.
When you take first, why don't you come here and then we stay close in the corner so everybody can be in? You come in too. Yeah.
This is for the special book. We finished when we have this photo too.
Just to show that I'm working, not only drinking.
By this stage, it was obvious Palmer was totally convinced. He told Sawn Porn that he kept at least one bank account, especially for the purpose of money laundering.
The balance of $10 million. Yes. So I send you $2 million. They asked me, I said, it's...
Like in American, if they suspect you, they will check all your account all over the world.
It's difficult for them to check me.
Yeah.
Number one, all our accounts, our business is in Spain, our banks are in offshore England.
Yeah.
And it's legitimate money. Most 90% is legitimate money.
Yeah.
So what can they achieve?
The more money Palmer needs to launder, the bigger the enterprise it has to be put through on Tenerife. And now he's going offshore there too. Palmer's empire is spreading like a cancer across the Canaries. We're on La Gomera, a previously unspoiled island which was supposed to be safe forever from the ravages of mass tourism. But only last week, Palmer was showing Russian businessmen round this prime chunk of the island on which he'd somehow managed to get his hands. And this is the first stage of a development that should never have been. But as Palmer had boasted to us, he always gets his own way by bribing local police, civil servants or judges. Derek Betteridge is one of the very few who've stood and fought it. Try and summarize for me what you think Palmer's business empire is these days.
I would have to say to you on that, knowing the size of the empire he runs, it's telephone numbers. It cannot exist solely on timeshare without a shadow of a doubt. No way. There's got to be laundering money elsewhere. It's got to be.
Indeed he is. And in the house we'd rented for Kunsa's men, Palmer put a price on his services.
Like how many percent you want? Like money, we pay you in Singapore, and then 1 million, and then to Europe. Okay. So roughly how much?
When so, if I take, you would want me to pay people in Europe, or but some people, some people you might want, or thing. I think it'd probably be something like 25%.
25%.
Because I have to do it properly through the tax, through everything. You know, because it's no good for if I come to England or into France and somebody says I open a suitcase with $500,000, they can't take it. From me, they can't take it. Not $1. So I say it's my money. I will. If you give me $1 million, I will take $1 million from my bank. This is clean money.
George Burns had now bowed out, his job done. He rated Palmer near the top of the criminal scale.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would list him as a white-collar criminal, and I would rate him as a 10. He's right up there in the top. His success is evidence in and of itself that he has made it from poor boy to an extremely wealthy man, and by means of not the legal methods.
By now, Palmer was so securely hooked that he even wanted to boast about his women.
By the way, how many children you have?
I have 4.
4. All boy?
2 boys, 2 girls.
Oh, I see.
But with 3 wives.
3 wives?
This is only private for us.
You say that I just think it's a joke, but it's real. How you manage 3?
A very problem. Always problem.
Always problem.
Always problem. And 2 girlfriends.
Which at one of his homes at Battlefields near Bath may be no laughing matter. Down there, between the swimming pool, riding ring and helipad, the smelting site is now a helicopter hangar. It was the laundering of that £26.3 million worth of gold that first alerted the police to the sheer scale of the money laundering problem. As Palmer, now back from Russia, told us, he could supply the Burmese warlord with heavy weapons. And then this man of violence had a special request.
You have people, yeah? So if I have problems where I can't use my people, or if you have problems where you can't use your people, you will give me some of your people to use, yeah?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Yeah. So if I want something done, somebody making problems to me, you see, you're good in Europe. In England, you're good for me, rather than my own people.
That's right.
In Spain, we're good. In France, we're good. And everywhere else. But in England, it's a lot of pressure for us to use my own people. So if somebody's making problems, big problems, you can give me some soldier from you, some men. Yeah?
That's no problem.
No problem.
No problem.
Former employees say Palmer verges on the schizophrenic.
John? 2 people. Without a shadow of a doubt, these 2 people.
And they are?
One person is a good guy, and the other person, you don't really want to know.
Who's winning, the good guy or the bad guy?
In most cases, the bad guy comes out.
So could that not just be that he puts on a good front when he has to?
No, I don't think he has any control over it. That's just my honest opinion. I don't think he has any control on that at all.
How much?
In the first, I didn't know the amount yet, but not all the 10. I think maybe up to 3 or 4. I don't know.
4 million.
I don't know yet. But I don't think
3
it's
million's okay.
Yeah.
You want me, once you give me the money, you want me then to give you an English check or somebody in London.
Yeah.
So it's clear.
Yeah.
Nobody can touch that money.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, we can, in the moment, probably do $3-4 million.
Yeah, right away, right?
Right away, straight away.
Yeah.
Then it will take.
That is.
I will have to work on the rest then, because we have to.
How long? Just give a time.
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
3 weeks, something. You know, the thing is, somehow I must now. If I know it's I have the green light, we must push money into that company.
But there was to be no green light. Since, like Palmer, Khun Sa's representative operates on the wrong side of the law, he's a pretty good judge of criminal character.
I think he's just a greedy gangster. And he don't care about people, he don't care about politics.
What did he offer to do for you?
He offered to launder money and then to buy arms and all the black money. And he can make black money into white money. That is what he offered.
And Palmer was anything but modest about it.
I'm not cheap, but I'm good.
Yeah.
It was a very successful sting. Why do you think it was? Was it your charm or his greed?
I think his greed. His greed made him blind.
I make it carefully.
Yeah.
I need minimum 6 weeks. I can handle 50 million every 6 months. But I need time. I can't do it next week.
Yeah.
I need time to. I want to be clear with it somehow. I want to be clear with lawyers, with everything, so there's no problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anybody can come and we say this is the money, it's clean, finish. I want to be 100%, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's not only your life, it's mine as well.
Yeah.
Now he's blown his own cover. The police, under tough new laws to fight money laundering, have raided 10 Palmer business addresses in Britain, where they've made significant seizures, and are now on the Isle of Man, examining his offshore bank accounts and companies. And as his private jet landed in France yesterday, more of Palmer's true form. His minder, realizing they'd been caught on film again, threatened to kill the crew. But as ever, Palmer had only himself to blame.
Mr. Palmer, Roger Cook, I'd like to talk to you about money laundering.
About what?
Money laundering. We've been listening to every conversation you've had with George and the conversations you've just had.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We've recorded every one of the conversations you've had with George and with the representative of Khun Sa. We've just heard you offering to launder money. We'd heard you offering to launder at least 3 million. We have the tape of it. Everything you said has been recorded. Everything, including requests for, including requests for enforcers. So every last thing you said, offering to launder immediately, as much as 60 million, twice a year, from drugs money, which you knew it was.
I wished I had it.
You have.
Palmer, big fish though he is a classic example of a much bigger problem.
Well, there are really 4 main evils around this. Firstly, there is the question of the money then gets recycled into other criminality. Secondly, there is the position that ordinary legal companies may find that criminals invest in them and then withdraw the rug at the last moment because it collapses. Certainly the victims of the original crime may not get the money back at all because there's so much complexity attached to where it was and where it is now. And lastly, of course, financial systems themselves may actually be put at risk because people lose confidence if those systems are not clean.
So, tell us more about the laundering. You were laundering money. You were offering to launder $60 million a year from what you knew. From what you knew was drugs money. The people you've been talking with come from Khun Sa.
Never heard of it.
We've got it all on film. You're going to look amazingly stupid. Everything you said, including the request for enforcers for when people didn't do what you wanted, is down on tape.